a bulletin board in your apartment complex or something like that that you want to put it up on, go ahead and take one of these, and we can print more and let people know about what's coming. All right, I am just going to demonstrate 2 simple recipes. A lot of what we have tonight is actually really easy to make. I'm not going to demonstrate the chili because it is just so easy. I mean, if you can throw things in a crock pot and open cans, you can totally do this. It does say to saute the onion. You don't even have to do that. You can just throw it all in the crock pot and walk away for, 6 hours or whatever, and it will be fine. So that's my demonstration of the chili for you. Just a little funny note about the poppy seed dressing. Just make sure when you put the dressing in the blender, don't put the poppy seeds in the blender because you'll get ugly gray dressing. You blend it up and then you stir the poppy seeds in later. My mom was cooking for a big event one time and she put somebody else to doing the salad dressing and it was ugly gray salad dressing. All right, tonight I'm going to show you the natio cheese. There are a lot of different substitutes for cheese sauces that vegans often make. My family's favorite is actually potato carrot cheese. But I felt we were already having potatoes. We didn't need to put potatoes on potatoes. And I wanted to do something with cashews because nuts are such a good source of magnesium. Nut seeds like pumpkin seeds and things like that are excellent mineral sources. So something that is really good to include in your diet. Now I'm starting with, actually what I'm going to start with is the water. It calls for 2 cups of water. You can just dump it in the blender, all in the blender. But what I am going to do is I'm going to put about half of it in here and start it heating up. That will kind of speed up my process. And I'll put half of it in the blender. And then we are going to add, it calls for 1/4 cup of raw cashews. Now I know sometimes if you go to an average grocery store, it's hard to find raw cashews. If all you find is roasted and salted, it's okay. And I'm actually going to use that. These are Aldi's. And then what I do is I put them in a little sieve and run water over them real good and rinse the salt off. And then we're going to just blend those up. So you can really use what you want. And also, I sometimes will use, have used the blanched slivered almonds. Those work in place of cashews in cream recipes as well. You just need to blend them a little more. I'd actually recommend maybe even putting them in some water and boiling them to soften them up. All right, then we're going to use something to make it red. A common thing to use is pimentos. You can also use fire roasted peppers. I am going to use smoked paprika. Sorry, Patty, we caught you at the wrong moment here. Can you tell us what you use when you have your voice back?
What did you use for the red in your natural cheese?
Roasted red pepper. Okay, so that's the flavor you're getting. So every one of those has a little different flavor, and you can choose what you like. Honestly, you can even use tomato sauce or tomato paste or cooked carrots. All of those are going to give a little different flavor, though. I personally like smoked paprika flavor. Okay, now we have our seasoning here. Onion and garlic powder. I reduced the salt in this recipe, so you're getting a reduced salt recipe. And a little pinch of cayenne pepper. If you use a little cayenne pepper or a little spice, it helps you to pull back the sodium a little bit. It just gives a little more flavor. Yeah, just a little. So you can always try different things like that. Adding other flavors and learning to enjoy other flavors other than salt. I mean, who doesn't like salt, really? I mean, a little salt tastes good in everything. But, I mean, I'm just curious, how many people here have eaten salt on watermelon? Okay, there's only a few of us that do that. But I don't do it on really good watermelon, but if it's one of those ones that doesn't taste real good, a little salt makes it better. But I'm not recommending salt That's not my point today. We're trying to get less salt. Now I'm using some nutritional yeast flakes. People have different opinions about how they like the flavor. Some people think it tastes cheesy. Some people don't like the flavor. You can also, you can adjust how much is in there. They're very excellent in B vitamins. They also have some potassium in them. They taste a little bit salty, but they're actually low sodium. So that's why we add it. Okay, onion powder, garlic powder, we got that. All right, now for the starch, we're going to use, you can use cornstarch, but I'm using tapioca flour, which Patty did there also. That's where you see the texture of when you pick it up, it's a little bit stringy. And so I do that because it reminds me a little bit of how cheese is stringy. It's not the same texture, but you can choose what texture you like. And so you can do cornstarch, and you can even use white flour if you want to, but you'd have to use a little bit more. Okay, now we're just...
Is the cornstarch a little smoother? Like in consistency when you're putting the end result, I guess?
I wouldn't say it's smoother. The key to smooth is to turn the blender on and just walk away for several minutes, which I'm not going to do right here because I'm going to spare your hearing. But yeah, if you can just let it blend for a couple of minutes, that's really key to getting it peak smoothness. All right, so the water is starting to come to a boil, and I'm just going to add that and help this to thicken up more quickly. Pass this back, and we'll go on to another blender that's clean, and we are going to do the peanut butter pie. Now I have here the crust already made. This one I made with wheat, but you can use oat flour or some other kind of flour to make a gluten-free one. Or if you like to make one of those like nut and raw crusts, you can use that. You can go buy a graham cracker crust. Anything like that works. Obviously, a graham cracker crust, we'd expect to see a little more sodium in that because it's a prepared product. One of the big things to eliminating sodium in your diet is to just cook for yourself because you actually see how much salt you put in. You would be astounded how much salt is in a lot of things like canned soup and things like that. We don't see it, so we don't worry about it. If we cook ourselves, we see it. All right, I need a knife. I can use this one here, excuse me. Not the best. The best way to use is the scissors on this, but. So I am using Morinu tofu. Morinu silken tofu is available at Meijer in the World Food aisle. It's more silken than the water-packed tofu generally. You can get it firm, but it's very silken, and it doesn't have the strong flavors that some of the tofus do. Some of them, if you blend them up in a pie like this, they'll be a little bit grainy, and you'll taste that little bit of beanie flavor. And I don't want the beanie flavor in my pie, so I have done the other, but I prefer this silken Morinu tofu. And I leave it out here if anybody wants to look at it later. Then we are going to use 3/4 cup of Crazy Richard's peanut butter. And I know that's funny. Crazy Richard's is nothing but peanuts. It has no salt in it. And most peanut butters, like I generally buy Kroger natural peanut butter that's peanuts and salt because I like the salt. But if you want to reduce sodium, Crazy Richard's is a way to go because it's just Crazy Richard's you can get at Walmart. I think you can get it at Kroger. Most grocery stores will have Crazy Richard's. It's, you know, way up on the top shelf in Walmart. You have to ask somebody to help or crawl up on the crawl up on a shelf.
When you crawl on the shelf, say Mandy said They might ask
Don't.
for it.
All right, and you can see very liquidy kind of butter too. Oh, I just realized one thing I forgot, which isn't terrible, but do we have some oil, do you think, in the... It is true this isn't necessarily a low-fat recipe. Thank you, that's perfect. But if we add a little more oil to a frozen recipe, it helps it not to crystallize and become crunchy. If you've ever, tried to make ice cream by blending some things together and just throwing it in the freezer and you get crunch, 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 fat will help to prevent that. So we are going to add oil to this for that purpose. You can always leave out that, but just be aware that it's going to be a little bit harder. All right, and then we're going to put in honey. Honey, we already got the oil. If you all, one of the things about hypertension is that you need to de-stress, and sometimes laughing does that. So if you need a laugh, I filled up this jar with honey before I left home, and I got here and I started unpacking, and things are sticky. I apparently put it in my bag without a lid on it.
Oh, no.
I can't even say I was stressed. I have no excuse for doing it. It just happened. All right. I have here just a tiny bit of salt. We're going to put a 1/4 teaspoon of salt in, but if you don't want to, you don't have to. You can totally do without the salt in this. I just realized I forgot the lemon juice and the cheese. We'll fix that. All right, and a little bit of vanilla. And we'll blend it up, pour it in the pie pan, and away we go. You just throw that in the freezer and let it freeze for a few hours. And just make sure you take it out, 20 minutes or so ahead of time. I have lovely helpers here that have slaved away cutting the pie for you tonight because it was a little too hard. Okay, I always have a hard time. Oh.
Try it. There we go. It's flashing.
Oh, no. It's too fancy. All right. All right. Here we go. And we will scrape it right in. I'm sorry not all of you can see that blending. We have this disadvantage of a pillar here that we can't remove. Pour it in, put it in the freezer, and enjoy it later. Bonnie, are you ready? We are ready for you if you're ready. We don't want to disturb anything, but if you're ready, I am ready to let you take over. And thank you so much for coming today, Bonnie. We appreciate you. And Bonnie, as you may have seen in the advertising, is a geriatric practitioner. She's practiced for many years, and she can share more if she would like to. I should also mention that thank you to Sam back there. We are working on live streaming this, and I think we're on Facebook Live right now. YouTube. We're on YouTube right now. So you can share with your friends later. So check us out on YouTube.
Can you hear me?
And that's why we're getting our
Can you hear me, Sam?
audio thing set up. So
So I don't have to talk really loud. You can talk loud enough for these people back here.
Hi there, everyone. She already introduced me. For those who don't know, I think I know almost everybody here. There's a few that I don't. But I am Bonnie Oetman. I am a geriatric nurse practitioner, and I still am working in the community, and I still take care of the older population. And I love it. As many of you know, as we age, we do have a lot of several issues that come upon us without us really realizing it. And hypertension is one of those. I want to talk to you about what is hypertension. Hypertension is the blood pressure that is higher than normal. Blood pressure that is 130/80 or higher is considered hypertension. Now, one of the things I want to draw to your attention, 130/80, some of your physicians in the community are saying today that really hypertension is 120/70. So they are tightening that number up really tight because of the next statement. Nearly half of the adults in America suffer from hypertension. One out of each two of you have hypertension. It is one of the most common diseases that we deal with in the community. And many of you may not realize you even have it. What is hypertension? What is blood pressure? I'm going to give you a little bit of information on that. Blood pressure is essential for blood to circulate through the vessels, taking oxygen and nutrients to all the tissues of the body. It can be defined as the force of the blood exerting on the walls of our arteries. Our arteries are just little tubes like straws. They're very small in some places, they're larger in other places. But the higher the number in hypertension, it constricts those vessels down. So it talks about here the higher number of your blood pressure, which is like the 120, that is called the systolic pressure. And it is when the heart pumps into the arteries. And the lower number, which is the diastolic pressure, your doctors probably always tell you that about the lower number, is the timing of the heartbeats, but it also is when your heart is at rest. So many of your physicians will be concerned about the lower number versus the higher number, because the high number is when your arteries are working, but when your arteries are not working and lower number starts going up, that is a concern for us. So, do you have high blood pressure? If you know what your blood pressure is today, you can look at this form here and see whether you are in the normal range, or are you in the elevated range, or in the higher blood pressure range. Again, normal is less than 120 and less than 80, but as I said, they're cracking down on that to be 120 to over 70. So anytime you even have a blood pressure over 70, they're going to start looking at things. One of the high blood pressure which we get concerned is the fourth one down is when you get into stage 240/90. That is a real concern for those of us in the environment. Just real briefly, put one slide in here about hypotension. Some people have low blood pressure, and that can be a concern for many people. We don't have as many people have hypotension, but I just wanted you to be aware that if you hear that, you will know what it is. Low blood pressure is called hypotension. Your blood pressure reads 90/60 and lower. And we do need for you to talk to your doctor immediately because you have many symptoms that can present when you have low blood pressure. Remember, your blood pressure values do change according to the day. They fluctuate according to various factors such as stress or dangerous situation. Your blood pressure will be lower in the morning if you've had a fairly good night's sleep, but as you continue to work through the day, your blood pressure may start to go up. And depending on how many stressors you have, it will make your blood pressure go up higher. Dehydration, alcohol consumption, certain medications, and a heart attack can induce a sudden drop in your blood pressure, but also you have to remember that dehydration is a big issue for blood pressure, period. If your blood pressure is a little bit low, we always start to give fluids, and because we want your blood pressure to come up. Dangers of hypertension. Can you read that? Hypertension puts a greater strain on the heart, which responds by increasing its muscle mass to cope with extra effort. This increase in muscle is harmful because it is not accompanied by equivalent increase in blood flow. It can lead to coronary insufficiency, angina. The heart becomes more irritable and more arrhythmias occur. In patients who have already had a cardiovascular problem, hypertension can intensify the damage. It promotes atherosclerosis, which is an accumulation of cholesterol in the arteries, and thrombosis, which leads to myocardial infarction and cerebral infarction, which means a stroke. So what I want, hopefully I'll get to that, why hypertension matters. High blood pressure can cause significant damage not only to your heart, but to your eyes, your kidneys, your brain, and blood vessels. Why do we say the eyes? Because your eyes have the smallest arteries there are in the body. And if you have hypertension, it does affect your eyesight because it constricts those really small arteries in your eyes. If left untreated, hypertension can lead to kidney failure and vision loss. In addition, your ability to think, remember, and learn can also be affected by high blood pressure. People don't realize this. There's even a type of dementia called vascular dementia caused by hypertension. People don't understand that. But if you don't have the blood circulating around your body just right, and we have some small arteries that are really having to work hard to get that blood in certain areas, it can cause some vascular dementia over time. It's not like you're going to have dementia tomorrow, but over time, if you don't get blood pressure under control, it will lead to some of this. One of the things I put on the brochure is, why do we call it the silent killer? Hypertension is often called the silent killer because most people don't know that they have it. Why? Because we don't have any symptoms. If you realize that your blood pressure is effective right now, you can't feel it. You don't know. You don't know what your blood pressure is sitting here. You all look pretty good to me while you're sitting here, but I don't know what kind of stress you had today. I don't know what you went through today. So maybe your blood pressure may be a little higher than what you'd like it to be. This is a problem. Blood pressure is high and you don't even know it, because high blood pressure can lead to a serious problems, including heart attacks, including heart failure, and including strokes. Hypertension is one of our biggest leading causes of strokes because it causes those arteries in the brain to get smaller, and then they get occluded, and they cause occlusion, like in the middle cerebral artery, like we have a right cerebral artery. On this side, we have a left middle cerebral artery on this side. Someone who has a stroke in the right middle cerebral artery has lack of feeling, lack of use on the left. Those who have left middle cerebral artery strokes cannot use their right side. But we don't think about all of these things when we think that we have hypertension. But over time, it can cause many of these issues. One of the things I really want to make a statement about is the heart failure. I can't tell you how many people I see in my practice who have congestive heart failure. The heart failure, our heart, let me go back a little bit. Our heart is a muscle. It keeps working just like this all of the time, or else you wouldn't be here. And over time, if we have high blood pressure, it causes that heart muscle to weaken. It can't pump the blood around, as already indicated in previous slides. So it really causes some stress on that heart muscle. We go into what we known as congestive heart failure. We don't have nearly the number of people with congestive heart failure as we do hypertension. Oh, don't worry. There are symptoms that you think about that causes hypertension or that come up that you don't even think that these are symptoms that you could have with hypertension. Despite its nickname, hypertension still displays symptoms such as or double vision, lightheadedness, or fainting. We think about that more with hypotension, but when your blood pressure gets so high, it really puts a strain on our bodies that we feel lightheaded. We have fatigue because your heart is constantly working, trying to get that blood circulating around your body. You begin with headaches. That is the number one key symptoms I want you to take away from today. All of a sudden you have a headache, and it's just miserable, and you don't know why. You've been under stress, you've been doing a lot of things, but you just have a headache that won't go away. And oftentimes you have a headache first thing in the morning. When you get a headache first thing in the morning, you need to have somebody check your blood pressure, because that's a real indicator to something is happening, because you should not have high blood pressure first thing in the morning. Heart palpitations, I hope you all know what heart palpitations are. It kind of makes your heart feel like this, like it's really beating fast. You end up with nosebleeds. Why would you end up with nosebleeds? Because our arteries in our noses are very small, and the heart is pushing hard to pump blood to all the arteries, and it makes those nose arteries very friable, and it causes us to have nosebleeds. We have shortness of breath, which really goes along with hypertension and heart failure. And sometimes we can have nausea and vomiting, but that is not a common issue with hypertension. There are also some risk factors. Mandy talked a little bit about these risk factors prior to this presentation. So if any of these describe you, you are more at risk of developing or having hypertension. Obesity is the number one reason for hypertension. Too much sodium in your diet. Mandy talked about that. Smoking, little or no exercise. These are the 4 main reasons for hypertension. Anyone that has hypertension and can even lose 10 pounds will lower your blood pressure. Just pounds. And being overweight strains your heart, exercises strengthen it. Also, know your family's medical history. A family member with hypertension raises your risk of contracting high blood pressure. It is genetic. If your sibling or parent has hypertension, you are at high risk. Period. That is the way we are made. If we could choose our parents, we might have some different outcomes. Can't quite do that. So we need to know whether your family history has a history of hypertension or has had a history of a stroke, because that hypertension is a precursor for strokes. If you don't know your family's medical history, please find out. High blood pressure is often more common among African Americans, and especially African American males. We tend to have more problems with African American males. That is just their genetics. Risk can be changed with lifestyle. Too much salt, eliminate in your diet. What do you think, guys? Can we really do without salt? It's tough. It is one of the toughest things. Most of my patients will tell me, "Oh, I cannot give up my salt." But okay, you can't give it up. You just need to lower your salt intake. Just like Mandy was showing us tonight, how to put other things in our diet to decrease the salt intake, because salt hides in everything. You look at your canned goods, you look at, now we might not eat hot dogs or lunch meat, but there's high salt content in those items. And salt is in all cheese. Did you know that? You know, there's things that we don't even know how much salt is in each food. So one of the things that Renovate, which is a program that we will be starting here in a few weeks, in January 22nd, one of the things at Renovate, they talk about how to lose weight, how to cut down on salt intake, and how to read labels when you go to the store. That is one of the most important things to learn what to do when you go to the store, because there's so many things in our foods today that makes it very difficult for us to even lower our blood pressure, just because I'm talking about blood pressure tonight, but lower our blood pressure because you think you're eating right, you're buying all the right things, but it is not according to what is in the labels of our foods. Now, the bottom one is not so many of, that affects many of us, but if you smoke, time to quit. We have lots of support groups all around the country to help stop smoking. Lifestyle to beat hypertension. Hypertension is not uncontrollable. There are factors that are uncontrollable, such as aging, genetics, and or menopause. Not all women who go through menopause end up with hypertension, but it is one of those factors that affect some of the older adults. However, there are other contributing factors. We've already discussed this. Obesity is one. A sedentary lifestyle. Poor diet. That's probably the biggest thing I hope that you'll take away from this presentation today, is about how poor our diets are. High salt consumption. Therefore, in order to prevent and eliminate hypertension, there are two basic rules to follow. Diet, eliminate salt, or try the Mediterranean diet, whole grains, fruits, vegetables, and nuts. For best results, 5 portions of fruit and vegetables, reduce fats, and reduce salt intake to less than 5 grams a day. How many of you know how much is 5 grams of salt a day? It is not very much. You could probably Google this, but it is like 3/4 of a teaspoon. So that is about all of the salt that they are wanting us to eat in a full 24 hours. And then exercise. World Health Organization recommends 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic physical activity, or 75 minutes of intense activity per week. Really, when you think about that, that's not very much. 75 minutes is not very much, less than 30 minutes a day. So I have here some good food we could eat. I'm not sure that we need to go through all of these. You can definitely look through this. Potassium-rich foods are the things that I want you to look at, because right there at the bottom, because if we would consume many of this more than the salt we would do a lot better with our processing of, and we could decrease our salt intake. Now, again, the bad foods, here, just a second, I'll move this up, get a picture of it, is the processed food items. While it's difficult to eliminate them entirely, try to do your best to limit your intake. We've already talked about some of these. Cheeses, Wonder Breads, some cereals have a lot of salt in it. No, processed substitute meat items can contain a lot of salt. You have to think about that too. Fried foods or foods with trans fat, and this does include McDonald's French fries. I tell you, almost all of us love McDonald's French fries. You have to think about how much salt is in those McDonald's French fries. And then, besides them cooking them and putting all their salt, they just kind of add more as they're going out the door. So we have probably more than a week's consumption of salt in one little bit of McDonald's French fries. So be sure to talk to your doctor about what foods to avoid with medications. I am not a dietitian, so I don't really know to get into all of the dietary needs that goes along with hypertension, but I do want to stress to all of you that hypertension is a medical issue we need to address all the time. And I hope that you will be thinking about this. It is dangerous. Hypertension is dangerous, silent killer, but it doesn't need for you to worry about it. Just work with your doctor, watch your health, and adjust your lifestyle. You are well on your way to living a healthy life. But you have to be aware of your blood pressure all the time. Your insurance companies are always wanting you to know what is your blood pressure, because they make a difference as to whether they want to insure you for this amount of money or that amount of money because your blood pressure is elevated. So that is all I had for tonight. I want to thank you for coming. The floor is open for any questions, and I would like you to know that I brought my blood pressure cuff tonight, and I'd like to take your blood pressure tonight if you are interested in doing that. And I will give you some brief information about your blood pressure, but I am not your doctor, and I don't know what meds you are on. So we can briefly talk about this, but I do not want to take your doctor's place. That's not my role, but I do think that it's important that you all come and get your blood pressure taken.